All right. So I'm so excited to have with me Grantt Bedford. So he's actually one of our clients with CCA. So it's been a pleasure working with Grant. Grant, when he first came to us, I know he had a little bit some frustrations in terms of his job search, but he was able to work with us and was able to find a new opportunity. So he has quite an amazing story in terms of how he did that. But I would love for him to just kind of share his story in terms of how he did that. So Grant, welcome. So happy to have you. So I'd love to just start off with kind of our first question that we have here. What was your situation before we started working with each other?
I had been looking for about a month, I guess, mostly on LinkedIn. Um, you know, did some fiddlers out, to people that I knew in my network, and was able to land a temporary job, with a company doing some consulting work. But I really wanted to get back into the corporate world, and I was looking, do I go to a coach? Do I go to, one of these, big agencies to, pay them $10,000 and they get you a
Yeah.
job, because I was really looking for a manager and above position, and came across you at LinkedIn, and talked to the wife and said, hey, check this company out, and it looks like they're helping people, and I've been out of the work for or looking for a job for about 10 years. So for me, it was a whole different world. And so decided to make the commitment, talk to you, and made that initial call. I felt that it was like, I think this is the person I need to be with, and the company I need to be with. As for the program, it was pretty simple of how to do it, and so that's how I came to you, and it was really through LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
reading reviews, and then having the conversation with you was really the clincher that I was like, okay, I need to work with these with this
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, no, and I'm so glad that you did. I mean, and you touched on something that you mentioned that a lot of job seekers go through, where you had mentioned that you hadn't had to look for work for about 10 years. Some people have been out of work for 10 years, not looking for work for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years for some. And the job search game has really changed. It's like it's totally different. It's very transactional, very digital. Very much so. And so I'm so glad that you trusted us with your job search. And so with that being said, what were some of the tangible results that you were able to achieve after we actually started working with each other?
So I would say that for the overall program, and going to the website and be able to do it on your own time, and being able to pace yourself. I did like the self reflection piece of what do you really want? What do you really, what do you want to look for? I think that was good as part of the program. I think it was very effective around how to search and how to connect and network on using LinkedIn in getting that information. You know, Thinking about it, I probably never would have done the use the tools that you teach in the system that I would have done on my own, because I wouldn't have thought of that. Right? It's something that, again, like I said, I hadn't been looking for a job for 10 years, so I didn't even know some of those things that were actually happened.
Mhm.
And I kind of tweaked it a little bit in that, the system tells you to go ahead and make a list and go ahead and, point out for the companies that you want to focus on. And for me, in the oil and gas industry, it's a little different than maybe tech, or,
Mhm.
another position or another industry like that. What I did was basically made the list, but if I saw a job that I wanted to apply for, I'd apply to it, and then I would automatically go to the company's website, and then to the company's LinkedIn page, and start to look for those people that could at least get me to an introduction to be able to do a interview, right?
Yeah.
And that system, at least for me, was working really well. I think we were joking around a couple weeks ago of, how many interviews did I do in the last 5 months, right? And it was easily close to 50, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I had 3 or 4 a week, and so for me is it's all about connection. And I've always told my daughter this. I said, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Mm,
And it's true.
yeah,
And especially in the job hunting space is that it's about connections. And
yeah,
I think for me, I look at this opportunity and was able to get that position, get a position that I wanted. I'm going to keep those connections and make sure that I keep continually doing that, because I think you get in a rut sometimes when you start to work for a number of years, and you just like, well, that guy, I don't need to talk to him anymore, or da da da. I think having that connection, because unfortunately nowadays anybody can get laid off at any time. I
yes.
mean, just look at Facebook, 10,000 people gone,
I know,
right?
I know.
So you have to have those continuous connections. And, there's a book that I had gotten, like the 5 minute drill on LinkedIn. And it really helps also of keeping those connections with the people that you think might be able to connect you with the job, or work with you later down the line.
Yep. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. And you're right. I remember when we joked a couple of weeks ago about how many interviews you've been on. I mean, some people struggle just to get one interview. You were you were having interviews back to back to back. And even while we would have our coaching calls, you'd be like, oh, there's another interview that just came in, and it was crazy. And so very, very impressive and just amazing to see how quickly you were able to do that. And also how many interviews you had, and that's very important that, you continue to stay on those interviews and you continue that momentum. And you're absolutely right. You don't want to just burn bridges with people, right? I mean, you never know. You never know when that connection, that person that could be that very person that can get you into an interview and that can help you land that job. You never ever burn those bridges. And it is, even though it does sound cliche, it's just not what you know, but who you know. It is so, so, so true. So, and in your case, I mean, that was like fueling your job search, and you were able to connect with
Yeah.
a lot of people, getting to know people, and of course, landing many, many interviews and eventually an offer, which was amazing. And you know what? When I think about it too, kind of looking back, you did end up getting some offers quickly, but it wasn't necessarily an offer that you necessarily wanted. I remember there was one particular company that, that was way out there. But hey, you got an offer, but nonetheless, it wasn't necessarily one that you wanted. But and also, we were kind of looking at the timing too. I think a lot of things probably would have came even a lot quicker, but given that we were in kind of this whole Christmas timing, New Year's and all that weird stuff, companies kind of ramping up, slowing down and all that stuff. And then just the weird economy that we're in. But nonetheless, here you are with a new job and you're able to land one. So that's awesome. Kudos to you. And so the last question I have for you is, so what advice, would you give someone who considers working with us?
So I would say follow the process. As a safety professional, I'm all process oriented, right? There's a reason you have a process, so follow the process, right? And second is that you really, I know I've talked to people and this is through my whole career of, oh, I hate my job, and I don't like doing this, and always tell them like, well, then why aren't you looking for one then, right?
Yeah.
And you really, especially if you leave or get laid off or fired from a job, you need to make that your mission and your job is looking for the job, right? That's your job. So instead of 8 hours of going to work, you're
Yeah.
8 hours or 10 hours looking for work, right? You can't do it half-assed. You can't do it
Totally.
part-time. It's
Totally.
fully all the time. And so if people are, well, I can't find a job. Well, how much have you really looked? How much have you really reached out? I mean, you think about it in all of our industries, we have connections, and it might just been that you talked to a guy once, but that's still a connection. I mean,
Yeah.
for me in the position that I'm in now, so my boss used to work for a company that I worked for 10 years ago, but
Mm,
because they knew someone that I knew, that got me in the door, right?
yeah.
So it's believe me, it's all about connections, and it's all about that is your full time job to
Yes.
make sure that you're looking for a job.
Totally. Love that, Grant. Absolutely. I mean, and I always tell people, look, especially in today's day, you're not just going to walk into 150, 250, $350,000 job, right? I mean, you're going to need to put some work into it. It's not just as simple as applying to a position and all of a sudden you're going to get the job. And, here's the magic, fairy job godmother who's going to come and give you a job. It does not work that way. It is really, I mean, there's work that goes behind it, but if you have the right strategy, you can be a lot more efficient in it. And of course, as you're more efficient in it, that can help accelerate things for you. So you're not out there for, a year, 2 years, 3 years looking for work, which, a lot of people do find themselves in, unfortunately. But it's awesome to hear kind of your story and how you made that transition, how you were able to do that. And, you're in an amazing position. And I think it was the one that you wanted. And I think for what you had mentioned. And so you're in a great role. And I'm so, so happy for you. So, Grant, it was a pleasure working with you. And, you're with us for life. So if you ever need anything, please come back and we'll be happy to work with you. So thank you so much, Grant. So it was a pleasure working with you, my friend.
No, thank you, and thank the whole organization and everybody on the weekly meetings. That's great support. That's another thing I suggest to people that come in, hire your services is to go to those weekly meetings because those do help.
Mm.
But you and your wife are a great support team. I really appreciate everything you guys did for me, and I'm going to I already recommended it to a lot of people that are looking. But if you need anything in the future too, I like I said, I still want to do dinner sometime, and if I get up to
We
Dallas.
will. We will. If you're in Dallas or if I'm in Houston, we will do that. So absolutely. Excellent. All right. Well, Grant, signing off. Awesome.
Okay,
So happy to work with you, my friend.
thank you, appreciate it.